Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 12 Attitudes and Responsibilities of Mastery. My name is Michael Bailey, and today is Wednesday, July 6th, 2016. I think today, I'll just jump right into this introduction. I'll stop periodically. If anybody has any questions, just speak up. If your mic's not working, I'll turn on the chat. In fact, let me do that right now. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I turned on the chat. All right. Part of the process of spiritual integration of our higher selves for the expansion of our consciousness, which is also referred to as enlightenment, involves reprogramming the way we think. Our thoughts create our reality and both our internal and external life experiences. The 12 Attitudes and Responsibilities of Mastery, when embodied and lived, will help to change our thought patterns, thoughts that we simply take for granted because they are part of our programming, our life experiences beginning before birth, and our unique perspective on our hologram or our external world. The changing of thought patterns actually changes the programming in our physical body and DNA. The 12 Attitudes and Responsibilities of Mastery are crucial to understanding what kinds of choices lead to what kind of outcomes, and provide guidelines regarding choices that lead toward oneness and the freedom from limitation, lack, and separation, including financial freedom, that are associated with true personal mastery. And I'm going to go ahead and start today. Being aware, awake, and able. And I love this equation here. Reliable knowledge plus informed action equals source-inspired wisdom. So knowledge plus action equals wisdom. Awareness. Don't worry about other people's distortions. Worry about your own. Actually, I don't think worry is the right word, but concern yourself with your own. Light, love, and awareness. The fundamental essence of our journey is the accelerated integration of one's own 1,728 parts, which equal our 12-strand DNA template, existing in individuated form, and ultimately full integration of one's own Christos self. However, successful preparation takes initiative, persistence, and leadership. Are you willing to identify and accept the need for the responsibilities inherent to true self-awareness? Self-leadership represents the key to satisfying the conditions of and incomparable potentials associated with one's personal service agreements. The point of focus is personal power, its accumulation, its use, and its effects. That implicitly relates to personal awareness, safety, and confidence issues, and leads to the question of how personal power currently is used, how that affects accumulation of more, how that additional accumulated power is consciously used, and how that further accumulates, and so on. During the Bermuda cruise, which was one of the workshops that these teachings come from, it was called Preparing for Contact Workshop, there was a moment when the class was asked whether they agreed that people, they're talking about KSers, these are people who follow these teachings, generally recognized they were making an inferior choice over something whilst at the same time being aware of a better or higher choice. Without any conferring, the group swiftly and unanimously indicated their agreement. People do frequently make inferior choices, even when they know there is a better one within their range of choice. the group was reminded of the role that aparti, which are receptors of frequency information in our personal shields, plays in this before moving on to a very interesting quiz, the Witness quiz, which was and is designed to assist in answering the question of why people make the choices they do. It is generally assumed that KSers make the cut to the ascension portals, which requires that a certain percentage of their personal shields, which are their energy fields, are aligned to their divine blueprint and continuously open to primal life currents. These are eternal currents of energy and frequency. The percentage can range up to around above 50% for those whose contracts require a 37 to 48 strand DNA coding. So the majority have anything up to 69% of their shields mutated. That's 14,000 out of 20,736 aparti, which are receptive to non-Christic frequencies. We call these Metatronic frequencies. These are negative frequencies. An everyday lack of conscious awareness of this fact is what determines why people make inferior choices. They don't know any better, a lot of times. The more conscious you can be, the better you will do. Willingness alone is insufficient to successfully address the relationships between the subconscious, the shadow self, and the conscious self, so intricately and deeply set as cellular programs that true self-awareness has, in all truth, proved an impossible ideal for all but a very tiny majority of humans in physical embodiment. Even adherents of the freedom teachings, which are the teachings that these come from, so even adherents of the freedom teachings are sometimes prone to patronize others who do not get it, posing the question of exactly who is getting or not getting what. Others feel that a highly articulate relationship with this work somehow accords status, a position of power holding, and thus judgment born in the superior guise of benefactor or teacher. Sometimes I call this spiritual arrogance. There are those ready and willing to play out their powerlessness programs in order perhaps that we might all spot and learn from the issues more quickly. A suggestion here, and one that Speaker 2 developed personally over 10 years ago with the Guardian's direct encouragement, is to notice what you are noticing, thinking, doing. Mindfulness. And find new ways and strategies to buy time so that you can re-instruct your body vehicle and the mutated related tendencies, triggers, and response patterns, thought and feeling chemistries, that otherwise operate on automatic, often with a little undesirable external stimulation of the personal fields, other people pushing your buttons. That the freedom teachings offer the best techniques available in this context is absolutely true, at least in my opinion, but there is little point activating something if you do not consciously actualize the desired effect by bringing the effect into conscious everyday thought and action. Sure, it's not easy. Remember, all of the paradoxes spin around what we call the VV game, or the victim-victimizer-blame game. One of the things that the victimizer program does, and we're still talking about apartheid and chaotic frequency, is generate all sorts of reasons for you to identify with things that are not really good for you. If you could stand outside of yourself for 5 minutes and look back at the person you see as yourself and the things that are going through, that it is going through in order to maintain certain stuff, conveniences, appearances, space for working, convenience in terms of the friends, etc., Not one of them has got anything to do with supporting you and where you are going. We hang on to a job that pisses us off so deeply, we wonder how we manage to go there every day. Why? And this is somebody speaking. Ashayana and I have cleaned toilets to put food on our table. Get rid of the idea that you do not clean toilets. You clean toilets if that is what you have to do to make things work. Who the hell are you to say that you do not clean toilets anyway? We did. Why can't you? This is getting towards the point of saying, I want you to feel free. How are you going to feel free? How are you going to get in a place to express any of this personal power? How are you going to demonstrate to your friends in Inner Earth is a higher civilization, that you are actually capable of handling any power? With that, you get rid of all the garbage, because that is what it is. It is a holographic loop that feeds insecurity. It feeds your fear. It feeds your need to feel at least level with the other guy. Some things to ponder. What things are you identifying with that are not good for you? Look at the stuff you buy, the space in which you work, the space in which you live, your friends, etc. Do they support your heroic path, the original path in which the fulfillment of your Christos self, of your divine blueprint, was your sole goal? Do they support your relationship with Source or God? Notice what you are noticing, thinking, and doing. How can you re-instruct your body and change and heal the mutation-related tendencies, triggers, and response patterns that otherwise operate on automatic? LTR statements are outspoken aloud affirmations. I am my heroic self now. I am totally safe and secure in my world. I am free. It's all about wave patterns. Love is an energy, a frequency, a state of vibrational harmonization. If you have a vibrational pattern here and another one over there, and each pattern is vibrating differently and they run into each other, they clash and get conflicted, and you get what's called disharmonic vibration. That is where your emotions like anger, hate, and resistance, where you get emotions like that. The feeling we call love happens because there is an actual physics involved. It is about wave patterns. You have one element that moves in a certain way, and the other one becomes able, or either of them becomes able to take on the pattern of the other, where they are able to harmonize and follow the same frequency. That is what gives us the experience of feeling, of bonding, of love. The love you feel is telling you something. If there is something or someone that you feel a great deal of love for, there is a part of you whose energy field is vibrating very, very similar to theirs. If you are with someone with whom you are constantly fighting, even if you like them on a conscious level, it is showing you that there are areas in your energy fields that are not running the same frequency. They're clashing into each other, and that is where the conflict is coming from. Obviously, they're speaking here on an energetic in terms of energy. If we are going to embody love, we need to understand it as an energy, as a frequency. Once we understand that love is something we can give at any moment we choose, we have a whole different position toward it. And also, something that I believe is important is you can't give what you don't have. So if you don't love yourself, how can you love someone else? Usually, we get in these little ruts with relationships, or with the seeking of relationships, or the getting rid of relationships because they don't work anymore. That is usually because we're coming from a place of, okay, I love you, I want to give to you, and somewhere in there, there's a little voice saying, yeah, and I need this, this, and this in return. And the more you do not get this, this, and this, the more tension you feel and the less you want to be with each other. If you take the concept of love as energy into the dating game, or if you take it into a relationship that you already have, you can shift these things. There is a way to approach the dating scene without being lecherous about it. A lot of people recognize, okay, I need a mate, and that's a valid request. I want somebody with me. Or getting clear on that, do I want someone with me or do I need someone with me? There's a difference. And if they go out with the I want as they size up territory, it still comes down to I am seeking something I don't have. You are looking to fill a lack in yourself by finding a symbol of that lack filled from somebody else that you're trying to bring in. You're approaching it from a give me rather than what I can give perspective. And you will probably reel someone in just following the same pattern, and you will find power struggle relationships happening. But you're missing so much in the relationship of love, because love is actually being able to expand more in yourself by loving another, not because of what they give to you, but by acknowledging that you get huge things from them just by them being who they are. Not because they are behaving exactly how you want them to all the time. Sometimes they don't. You need to love them anyway. And there are limits there too. You don't nail yourself to a cross. You don't make yourself a doormat. I can love you. However, if I happen to be married to you and you are one of those people who act out, yes, I want to be married, but I also want to have 25 girlfriends. Well, excuse me, go find another wife. There are limits. It is a whole balancing act, and it comes down to reperceiving love and spirit as something that go together. Some things to ponder. Practice taking the concept of love as energy into your relationships. See if things shift. Can you give to a relationship without expecting anything in return? Try it and see what happens. And some affirmations, or LTR stands for Linguistic Template Reprogramming Statements. I give unconditionally. I am omni-love. I am whole now. I just want to pause here for a minute to see if we have any comments or anything. No comments? Okay. Perceiving the energy essence. First of all, close your eyes and look at your mate, or look at the type of person you would want, and pretend that you cannot see them as physical bodies. Pretend that you see them as energy essences. Start there and try to see the people around you and yourself as you really are. Right now, we're all in bodies that are like costumes. It's like a grand ball, a costume ball like Mardi Gras. Except we forgot to take our masks off and we don't remember who we are. We can start to realize that what we see when we look in a mirror is not who we are. It is a costume we have chosen to wear, and it has certain aspects and attributes. Somebody's got their mic open. If you could just mute yourself until you're ready to talk, because I'm getting an echo. The body will give you certain perceptual filters depending on your gene code. Depending on your gene code, it will give you orientations for which you chose that body and that gene code to have those experiences. I think what they're talking about here is heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, things like that. But once you get beyond the, okay, it's mine, I own it, I'm not disowning it, there is the real me, this eternal energy essence behind it. And you start to realize, yeah, that is me. And the other people in the world, that is them too. You start to realize that you cannot contact others without picking up the phone. You cannot send out information telepathic. You can send out information telepathically in the D4 or the astral frequencies or higher. If you want companionship, ask the higher net, or go, what we say is going vertical, which you go to your own higher self rather than going horizontally out into the world externally. So if you want companionship, ask the higher net rather than the internet. Go to your own Christos level. We are all connected to that. Then there's the middle net. That is the net you get entangled and ensnared in. This is what they're referring to as exists in the D4 astral planes, and it's a mess. This is the one that goes from dimension 4 up to dimension 11, and it is controlled primarily by fallen angelic forces that would just love to take your phone call and plug it into their switchboard. They love to tell you what to do. This is where learning about something called the Maharic Seal and learning about the body parts you have is your job to learn to master. It is like if you want to be a swimmer, you're kind of foolish to rent a boat, take it out into the deep ocean and jump in without ever having had a swimming lesson. And you don't have a clue how to keep yourself afloat. What they're referring to here is what we call astral projection or telepathic. You have to learn to be very discerning here. This is what people are doing in the New Age movement. They want their spirituality, and of course that's a legitimate desire, but they're jumping off the boat without even knowing what the waters are, and they happen to be shark infested right now. We do need to take responsibility for ourselves. If you decide to walk across the street in the middle of a really busy street and you assume that just because you want them to, the cars are going to stop and not hit you, and you happen to get flattened and end up in the hospital, whose fault is that? Who are you going to blame? A lot of people would go and sue the driver who hit them, even though it was them who walked out in front of them. Some things to ponder. Practice looking beyond people's bodies and see them as energy essences. See them with the inner eye. See them with your imagination. And some affirmations on that front. I see people as they truly are. I see the truth of who I am. Owning your power. If we are going to be spiritual beings, it is time to take responsibility. Forget this suing other people's stuff. You created half of it. Now, sometimes suing works because it balances karma. Let's put it that way. It is the law of action and consequence. But when it comes to feeling victimized, what was your role in creating that manifestation? What was your part in making this happen? Essentially, if you are choosing to play the role of a victim, look at what you did on the subtle end of it that allowed for it to happen. As you take more responsibility for your manifestations, you become more powerful. As long as somebody else is responsible and someone else is to blame, you are powerless to fix it. But if you created it, you find the element of it that you created. All of a sudden, you realize if you created it, you can discreate it and create something better. By taking responsibility, you own your power. When we move into spirituality, real spirituality, it's not a baby game anymore. It's not a New Age quick fix game. It's not about being all love, light, and clueless. I've met many people that are like that. Most of the New Age people are very heart-centered. They're really trying very, very hard, but some of them remind me of little ballet dancers, little girls in little tutus that are just so sweet and loving, and they just bounce around. This is how some of the people that get hung up in the New Age pitfalls are acting. They don't want any responsibility. They want to hand their power over. And there are a lot of people, a lot of beings out there that are more than happy to take it from you. A lot of the people who are doing this say, oh, they'll fix it, or they'll save it for me. I'm not doing anything wrong. There's a payoff to handing your power over, which is, I can be lazy. I don't have to do it myself. It is a laziness factor that is being played on by groups like the Anunnaki or by the Dracs. These are two extraterrestrial races that are very primarily involved with Earth. People like quick fixes. We've been trained to like it quick. Have somebody else do our dirty work for us. Make it easy, make it fast. I want it now. If an angel or a fallen angelic or an ET or your neighbor promises to give you that, ask why. Really start to think about it. Do I really want them to? Why might they want to do that for me? Is it good for them to do that for me? Is it good for me for them to do that for me? There are some really subtle things taking place in the area of attitude. The ones who will be trained in Templar mechanics. Templar mechanics are the mechanics of stargates and time portals. They will be trained in Templar mechanics first, will be those who are willing to learn and show they are responsible grown-ups and are not immature to the point where their egos are running the show, and are only spiritual if it suits their needs at the moment. They will be the people who show they really care, who really demonstrate that they want to learn and employ good judgment when it comes to handling energy and responsibility. What the Planetary Templar does is run universal life force currents from the Templar into the planetary body to sustain the planetary matter base and to sustain the life field and the consciousness here on this planet. When we are considering planetary stewardship and really want to be a part of what it means to be a human, an angelic human, we are moving into a space of relearning what we once knew about the mechanics of this sacred science. It takes sobriety, responsibility, and love to do this. It also takes knowledge and humility to realize the universe is huge and there is an awful lot to learn. Whoops. We can start here, but never let your head run away with you any more than you want to let your heart run away with you. where you go off the deep end and follow something even though it isn't good for you. You know how people get into a lot of those I fell in love situations. Think about choosing to rise in love rather than fall in love. What a concept. Because a lot of people get run over by their emotional body. That can also happen when you get into spirituality. All of a sudden, you learn how to run something called a Rainbow Round Table. And it is, wow, look at how much I know compared to the other people out there. This is awesome. If you go into that direction, first of all, you're going to block your ability to run any grid mechanics or the frequencies that are required to run something called a Rainbow Round Table. Second of all, you're going to mislead yourself. There is nothing you lack or need so badly that you have to con yourself into a superiority complex. There is nothing that is lacking inside of yourself so horribly or that is so pathetic or lowly that you have to martyr yourself to reclaim your feeling of being worthy of something. You need to just love you just the way you are right now. This is a necessary step to owning your power. You are in a stage of growth and a stage of awakening. There are places to go and places to move up to once you are there, but that does not mean you are not good enough. You are perfect right now. You need to know your perfection right now. That doesn't mean there's not room for improvement. That doesn't mean there's not room to grow, because that would be stagnation, not perfection. Masters, ascended masters, are needed right now, and masters are here. Probably everyone who's listening to me right now is a master. Most of them, but many of them, are still sleeping. Most of them just don't remember yet what they came here to do and what they are supposed to do with the energy that they have. We are here to learn that, and one of the most important things is attitude. Attitude is huge. Attitude will either make or break your awakening. Perfection is ever expanding. Once you reach one space, there's another space to expand to. But if you can appreciate your own perfection right now, you can give yourself credit for having available love that you might not give yourself credit for having. Right now, you have in your cellular memory the things you will learn in this weekend, this week, this month. It is in there already. Your body knows how to run Stargate grids, even if you don't even know what they are. You think they're a metal ring on the TV. Your body knows. Part of your body holds the knowledge and the memory of how to run frequency through the planetary grids. And essentially, that's what a Rainbow Round Table is. This is true for all those that are here in a human body, even people that are fallen angelics incarnate in human bodies. Give yourself credit for what you have right now, because when you do, you open yourself up to allow more to come. A lot of us tend to be very hard on ourselves, particularly the people that are sincere, really hardworking people. They do not want lip service. They do not want falsity. They're willing to work hard and be responsible. They can put themselves through the mill with it, where no matter how good they get, all they see is the stuff they don't have yet. That puts you into a lack space. If you want to have mastery, just like if you want to have love, be it. I am love now. If you tell yourself that, you set the grid. You literally set a template for others to follow in the planetary grids. You're giving the body the commands to manifest it. Some things to ponder. Do you find yourself seeking approval for things that you do or for what and who you are? You continually seek validation, external validation. Find ways to appreciate your own perfection. Learn to celebrate yourself. When you feel victimized, look at your role in creating that manifestation. If you are choosing to play a victim, look at what you did on the subtle end of that allowed it to happen. Find the element that you created. You have the power to discreate it and create something better. What are some of the ways you can do this? Some affirmations. I am perfect right now. I am love now. I am a powerful being. I am this. I am. And I think all of this kind of ties into this next subject, self-leadership. Choose to see outside the drama. Recognize the programming. Self-leadership at the third dimensional behavioral level is the most fundamental of issues and a prerequisite for not only have successful contact with your higher aspects of self, but also multidimensional transmutative ascension itself. We can ask for help. However, the beloveds, and this is what we call them the beloveds, these are higher beings that bring us these teachings. However, the beloveds make clear that contact presupposes a 50-50 effort, you and them, beginning with yours. What they're saying here is that if you want to have contact with higher beings or even extraterrestrials, that you have to put forth half the effort and they will match. Develop a technique of your own, tailor-made to deliver the quality of intention in action associated with personal contact, which would befit the most personal partnership or union of spiritual heart and mind. The greatest gift is one you give yourself. The ultimate prize lies within the further preparation of your emotional, mental, psychological aspects of yourself. Without such preparation or healing, one offers the Iani, which is one of these groups, little more than a well-intentioned, albeit innocent, ignorant virus of the cosmic internet. Conscious preparation represents your own first major and conscious act of creation, which is what you incarnated to do. To do this, you have to feel the power to achieve it. And that's the rub, because we don't. Power, or more accurately, powerlessness, is the core issue shared by all humans. It is programmed deeply into the collective psyche. We have no conception of the self that exists prior to DNA mutation and genetic compromise, which is what happened to humanity in the past. We hide our supposed weakness and powerlessness in lies, self-deception, ambition, anger, competitiveness, affected piety, and material or spiritual superiority. We know little of our adopted coping mechanisms, the roles we play, and the masks we wear. The masks of how you should be and must be eventually become the mask that you know as your true self. The first adoption of mask behavior triggers the law of karma. Thus, the life game grows ever more complex as old strategies fail under the weight of invisibly self-generated lessons. The conscious mind tries to make sense of it all. In adult life, the consciousness bobs and weaves around the spectrum of love and fear. We fluctuate between victim and victimizer reasoning and various behavioral alternatives. The ego dips in and the conscious self reaches out, seeking a source to fix the pain. God, masters, or angels. Anything as long as it's external. The underlying motive is fearful, and fear continually cuts you off from source, from God's source. If life or God forced you into your true birthright and saved you from suffering, you would never be free. Freedom means no force. Self-discovery must first occur on a mundane psychological level. It comes from the deep familiarity with and attachment to the masks we play with in the fight with duality. Deep familiarity with and attachments to the masks we play will lead to erroneous notions of non-attachment, implied atonement, and spiritual extensions of fundamental unworthiness, as distinct from the power to be implicit in at-one-ment, rather than atonement, at-one-ment. Within self-discovery lies the potential to realize you are the master of your own universe. This becomes real only to the degree that you master yourself. Without the desire to treat all of yourself with honesty, nothing will change. Some things to ponder. What masks are you wearing? Or what masks might you be wearing, or still be wearing? What faces do you show the 3D world? What are your adopted coping mechanisms? Masters don't need coping mechanisms. They deal with life as it really is. Ponder for a moment the reasons you might use masks. Perhaps you fear showing someone your true self. Maybe you tried being your true self once and someone laughed at you or betrayed your trust. Perhaps it makes you feel vulnerable. Do you have the courage to take off your masks and step into your true power? If this is the case, this week take some baby steps in your journey to take off the masks. Allow the Christ, the inner Christ within, to stand within you. If people laugh, act and respond as the Christ. Develop a technique of your own in partnership with your own Christos self to help you realize a personal partnership or union of spiritual heart and mind. The point of mastery. If we can have the courage to face the trickery and to realize that in facing it we take our first step toward God and into having that power, we can have the true power and the presence and the love with us, because it comes through us as energy, as frequency. And in order to accomplish that, we need to know more about how to find it and how to hold or store it. Realize that God does not act for you, but through you. In this realization, you are no longer driven by circumstance. It is the point of mastery, the belief in self as God, and the realization you can deliberately use these powers of realization to add more to God's source's experience of itself. When we step into true power, we release the need for power. Needs are likely to foster failure. Failure fosters blaming anybody but yourself for the roles you have chosen to play. We are here to learn and remember. We are not here to fix anything but ourselves. We persist in believing in our smallness, failing utterly to comprehend the power that is always ours. When you discover yourself and the role you play in this holographic game, you come into your own power. No one can do it for you. You must discover this power for yourself. Something to ponder. What does it feel like to say, I am God? What would it feel like to tell each part of your body, each organ, each leg, each arm, that they are God and therefore perfect? And some affirmations. I am whole now. I am perfect now. I am God. I remember I said that once to my younger sister. She's an evangelistic Christian. And she looked at me and she said, do you have any idea how arrogant that sounds? And I kind of laughed because I realized, Nancy, I said, I think you misunderstand. Maybe you think I'm saying I am God over everyone else. That's not what I'm saying at all. And then I had to stop because I realized that there was no way she could understand it at the point she was at, and that was fine. But I am God. You are God. Everything is God. And I think that's probably a good place to stop for today. We'll continue next week, beginning with Able, because at the beginning this was about aware, awake, and able. So we'll end here for today. Anybody, any comments or questions?
Michael?
Yes.
Your scriptures are beautiful.
They're not my scriptures, honey.
I know. Yeah, you're reading it, but still, they are your scriptures. People can retract. You know, you can retract. We all can. But
Right.
I just, yeah. The spiritual arrogance, you know, anyone could call it that, right? They may do that very thing, but I loved what you talked about with the New Age movement, which I also believe can be harmful in so many ways. There's always negative and positive until you get to about the sixth dimension. Then the light's so big that you can't get out, and it's all positive. I think, though, sometimes, like me, I'm not ready for all positive. And you get to this point where you realize that it's okay that you still want to be with the negative and the positive. And to be pure positive, to me, would be maybe a little boring or something. And I think that's where we come from, that vibration. But not only that, but just...
I think what you're talking about is what we call polarity, which is, it's part of reality. It's part of physical reality. Is polarity. There's up, there's down, there's right, there's left, there's male, there's female, positive, negative. There are two sides to everything. I think that's what you're referring to?
Yes, and I'm interested in knowing, too, outside of everything that you talked about, the victim syndrome, so to speak. Discreating, never heard the word discreate, ever. Never even thought about the word discreate. That was very powerful because, we're not just creating, we're discreating. That was good.
Well, if you created it, you can uncreate it, yes.
It's kind of just like, but it is true. I mean, it really is the truth. And that's, again, we're back to retraction. You can retract. It's like there's a lot with teaching and protecting and integrating and learning and experimenting and finding and seeking and listening. But there's also this way to just retract what you may have done, or just look on it in a different way. So I'd like to ask you a question. Do you mind?
No, ask away.
So what do you know about what's going on with our DNA? Seems very apparent that you already have it down. You've discovered, a lot more than just the mechanism of the Templar, So where do you think, sometimes we want to go a little deep, What are they doing? I mean,
you're asking what's happening with our...
I guess I'm going into more the grays and the grays that are below the reptilian race,
right,
that has taken over maybe 21 solar systems by now. And here we are. Where are we really on Earth? Where are we?
Well, the grays, the whole issue with the grays is, and their reason for abducting humans has to do with a program of hybridization. The grays represent a race gone amok. They lost their home. They're very intelligent, and their science is very advanced. They have mastered the science of interdimensional portals and time travel and things like this. But in essence, what they did is they cut themselves off from their own home planet and so their own race morphogenetic field. Every race has a morphogenetic field, and which is form holding. And what happened with the grays was that they went through so many portals, and they used their technology, their genetic engineering, to manipulate themselves in so much that eventually they realized that they were at a point where they were lost. So they basically identified humanity as being as close to how they once were as any race they've been able to find. And so what they've been trying to do is to restore themselves to as close as what they used to be through human beings. Now, I know that a lot of the gray, the vast majority of them have been stopped, the negative grays. There are founders in our time matrix, and there are some that they're called the Ethian, and they look. Remember the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind? At the very end, there were these tall, very spindly beings, and a lot of times in people who have abduction experiences.
Before you keep going, I've probably seen clips of that movie maybe 800 times by now. That's how much I love that movie.
Well, the Ethian are founders. They're definitely a Christic race. And what they've done is specifically the Ethian, which are they are the prime genetic strain from which the grays developed. So they've stepped in to help them, and the vast majority of them have moved to a different course of action. They're being helped by the founders to restore themselves without having to abduct humans. But there's still a small segment that continues to try to do the old agenda Um, and, you know, if you really want to understand that whole scenario, there's a book that goes way in depth about all the Greys and their dilemma and their drama and everything they've done. It's called Voyagers 1, The Sleeping Abductees by Ashayana Dean. She's the same lady that these teachings come through. There's another book called Voyagers 2, The Secrets of Amenti. And when I posted the other day to the Skype room the stuff about the Templars and things like that, that's information that came from that book, The Voyagers 2. It's a 550-page, almost a 600-page book that's very information dense, and it goes very in depth into human history. It explains what the fall of man is, that it was actually the destruction of Terra. It goes very in depth. But back to your question about our DNA, the Greys, they don't understand the complexities because the Greys are still fourth dimensional, and they don't understand the complexities. A lot of their hybrids have ended up just disintegrating because they're trying to integrate and play with genetics that they know nothing about. We're talking about genetics from as high as the 12th dimension, 14th, 13th, 14th, 15th dimension. And so that's why the Atheians stepped in to kind of redirect them. But what's happening with human DNA right now is that the Earth is caught, or has been caught for many hundreds of thousands of years in a vast interplanetary, interdimensional, interstellar political conflict. And the struggle is basically between Christics and fallen angelics. And, basically the negative ETs are all about creating, they're the ones who are behind the whole one world order thing. But that whole drama has basically been brought to an end. It was brought to an end with the activation of something called the failsafe, and that happened at the end of 2012, between December 21st, 2012 and January 3rd, 2013. And that was the final activation of something called the failsafe. And the failsafe, I'll just try to briefly explain what it is. There are frequencies of consciousness and energy now anchored on the planet and in the planetary grids that have never been on Earth before. These are levels from the very highest levels of God's source, of what we call God. And what these frequencies are doing is they're restoring the original, eternal, authentic, divine template of all the life forms. But life forms all have free will. So basically, all the life forms, especially on planet Earth, have a choice. They can choose to rise in frequency with the planet, or they can choose to go down with the planet part of the planet is going to go into a black hole in about 1,000 years, and the rest is going to go up into Stargate and return, bypassing normally what are billions of trillions of years of evolution all the way back to oneness.
So almost seems like sometimes, like with the New Age, I guess, in a way, the New Age people are just kind of like, well, it doesn't really matter what happens. I'm just gonna sit here and be still. I mean, in a way, that's what they do. But then there's the other that's a little different, is that you do some things. You're not going to just sit still. You're not ever going to sit still. You're always going to move through it. It's like a dance, your own dance, like whatever you love that dance to be. It could be drums or harmonics or something, but you use your own technique, so to speak, like you said earlier, way before, a long time ago, you were talking about technicals in a way, but it's also technique. Like those are two syllables, but words are funny too, because you actually could get away with a lot by not even saying anything as well. So it's like you could either speak all day long or you could just not say a word and you're fine.
Well,
it's the frequency. It's not about the words.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It you know, if you think about sometimes like Buddhist masters or, you know, very, I forget what they're called, but oftentimes they won't speak much at all. But when they do, what they say is very deep. And you can communicate just by sitting there. I mean, it would appear physically that you're just sitting there, but you're radiating frequency. Everyone radiates an encryption, a specific encryption, and other people feel it. If a person is of a low vibration, of like a, you know, what we'd call, you know, criminal or evil, whatever you want to call it, there are varying degrees. For them to be in the company of a being that radiates a very strong Christic frequency is going to be very uncomfortable. But they're not going to understand why. They'll just know they want to get away. Or they might, who knows how they won't react positively, because it's not a pattern match. Like the law of energy is like energies attract like energies. So as you go through your life, like I have a friend, she escaped from Iraq during the war by working for the government, and now she's a U.S. citizen. But her whole life has been nothing but one drama after another. And she doesn't know anything but drama. She doesn't know any other way. And so she keeps wondering why she keeps attracting men that treat her badly. Well, if you go back to her childhood, her father treated her badly. In the culture she comes from, women are property. They're property of their husbands. So these behaviors get passed on generation to generation to generation. But as a result of what I was talking about earlier, as a result of this fail-safe, all that karma, and there are many levels of karma. There is personal karma, there's family and ancestral karma, there's national karma. There are many, many different kinds of karma. And all of that, because of the frequencies that are now coming into the planet, all of that karma, all of that stuff is being pushed to the surface to be cleared. That's why we're seeing so much drama in the world going on around us today, and so much, you know, we're especially seeing we're seeing transcendence. For example, one of the reasons somebody asked me once, well, why Bitcoin? Why cryptocurrency? Because cryptocurrency is the external vehicle. It's the manifestation vehicle of consciousness. And it's the people transcending the old system, not by fighting it, because what you resist persists, but by transcending it, rise above it, and render the old systems obsolete. So with that, I'm going to close this call out, and we can continue to talk. Let me just close the recording out 1 second. Let me just